Okay, well, welcome to this little tutorial. It's designed to help you create a simple bullet car. I call it a bullet car because it looks like a bullet, and it's designed to run off a CO2 gas cylinder, which fits inside that hole. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the dimensions and the design. That part of it we'll discuss later, but this is purely how to get started with Fusion. So that's what we're about to do. So I'm going to start a new file. So I'll go from File here and create a new design up the top, and at the moment it's called Untitled, and I want to call it something, so I'll save it as, or I'll save it, and it will be queued to give a name. I'll call it Bullet 2, and at the moment it's located on my desktop, but I can choose to locate it anywhere else that I want. And so I'm going to click that down arrow. I've got a bunch of different folders here, and inside each I can have a subfolder. So Desk 1 here, that folder has all of these subfolders. If I want to create a new project, I can create a new project or a new folder with inside each of these. So I'm going to save it in, I think I've got F1 cars here, and I'm going to save it in there, in that folder, F1. There it is. Okay, so the screen is blank at the moment. The first thing to do is want to create a sketch. So create down here, sketch. Now that's a 2D sketch, and straight away you'll find that these planes appear. And if they don't, click this button on the side here, which enables visibility for your origin. Your origin is the center of the universe. It's like it's divided up in 3 dimensions, 3 planes, and there it is. If you uncheck it, it disappears, but check it and it's on. So let's create a sketch. So create sketch, and then we've got to select a plane to draw on. So I'm going to select this plane. It doesn't matter which plane you select. And now I strongly suggest that you start drawing from the center of the universe. In this case, I'm going to draw a profile. Now notice that up here has appeared a sketch palette. We'll use that later on, but you can drag it around with your mouse if it gets in the way. So at this point in time, the first shape that we're going to create in our 2D sketch, which we'll later make to 3D, is going to be a rectangle. So I'll create a rectangle, and in this case I'm going to create a 2-point rectangle. Now there's different types of rectangles. Click on here, you'll see 2-point, 3-point, center point rectangle. Let's just go for a 2-point rectangle like that. Start it from the center here and draw it out. Now I happen to know I want my object to be 130 millimeters long, and at the moment I'm being given the width. Now the width, I'm choosing to make that width 27 millimeters. So because I'm only going to draw half of this circle, or half of the object, or actually I'm going to draw a quarter of it, you'll see why in a minute. I'm going to half that 27 millimeters outer diameter, which is this diameter over here. So the diameter of this circle here, that's 27. I'm going to halve it because I want this distance from here to here. So half of 27 is going to be 13.5. So let's draw my circle again. I happen to have lost it there. So we'll create a rectangle again. From the center, drag it out holding the mouse button down, left mouse button. Release the left mouse button, and I'm now going to enter in a value here for the height, and that'll be 13.5 millimeters. Now if I hit the tab button, I go to my next dimension, which I want to be 130, which is the full length of the object. Hit enter, or hit the 0, hit enter, and I've got that rectangle that you just saw, and I've got the specific dimensions that I wanted. Okay, now the next thing is, inside this circle, the bullet thing, there is a cavity here which is 50 millimeters in length, and it's got to be 19 millimeters in diameter. So I'm going to create half of that. So I'm going to create another rectangle here, and I'll drag it out, and this time I want it to be 50 millimeters long, but I only want it to be half of 19. The radius of that circle is half of 19. 19 is the diameter. So if I make half of 19 is going to be 8.5. No, it's 9.5. 9.5. Hit the tab button again. Now that gives me the long ways direction, which I want to be 50 millimeters. So I'm going to hit enter for 50 millimeters. And I've got another little circle inside there. Now that's pretty cool. I like that. You'll see why it's useful to do this in a minute. Now the next thing that I want to do is create an elliptical shape to get a nice curve down here. So the next thing I'll do is going to create a kind of circle. No, I don't really want a circle. I want an ellipse. There's the ellipse. So click on ellipse. Now, the thing you need to know about ellipses is that they have a center, just like a circle does, and then they have a minor axis, which I'm clicking here, and a major axis, which I'm dragging out my mouse to find the major axis. Now I'm going to do something here and just to show you something. I'm going to click it short of that line where I want it to go, because I want to show you how to use constraints. So this section up here are called constraints. They force your lines into certain areas. So you see this section here, it's called a tangent constraint. So if I click on tangent constraint now, and I select a circle or a rounded shape, and then I select a line that I want it to become tangent to, click the line, and you see how it just touches and becomes a tangent? Now that's really important for us. So the other thing is I want this line here to be tangent to that major or wide arc of the ellipse. So I've still got tangency on at the top here because it's still highlighted. Click on the line, click on the ellipse, and it'll be a tangent to. I just want to make sure of that. I'll show you why. Alright. Now, if I hit escape, the escape key, I get out of that tangent constraint. Now, this next section I've just about created what I want to do. Almost done. And I'm going to show you this part here, which is a nice bit. Use that little trim function here, which has got a set of scissors. Left click on it to highlight it. Now you're going to trim off little lines. So I don't want that line. I'm going to click on it and it disappears. Now if you find another line sitting underneath it, because I've got two rectangles on top of each other, click a second time and you see how that line completely disappears. Now I'm got a warning here that dimensions were removed, so that may give us trouble, but we'll find out. See how that line highlights? I just want that line highlighted now, and I'm going to double click on it again. Good. So now I've got a shape that's starting to look. Now I don't want this particular section part of the ellipse here. I'm going to get rid of it. That one. And I don't want this part of the ellipse here. So I'm highlighting it and left clicking it because I'm still in the trim function. I'm getting closer to the shape that I want. Don't want that line. Click on it because I'm still in trim function. Don't want that line. Now I've got a bounded shape like this, which, and I'm, by the way, if you see it getting bigger or smaller, I'm just scrolling my middle mouse button to make it bigger or smaller. Okay, so I've got a bounded shape. So now I'm going to do something a little bit different. So just to look at it in 3 dimension, I'm dragging the box by holding my left mouse button down here, and I can move this line. You see, it's a 2D sketch, still a 2D sketch. I want to do one more thing. I'm going to create an axis along here because I want to revolve this whole shape about an axis. So to do that, I'm going to create a line. So there's the line function. I'm going to click on that, but when I create a line, I want a particular, so just click on line here and it should give you just a general line. But now I'm going to create a thing called a construction line. So there, see that? Line type construction. Left click on that and that gives you a line which has got dots on it. So it's not really a line that's going to show up in your drawing, but it nonetheless, and by the way, if it sticks you like this and you want to get rid of it, just right mouse button click and click OK, and your line exists and you unstick yourself on that anchor point. That's going to act as an axis for us to spin this shape about. See that shape that I've highlighted? I'm just sort of holding my mouse and you see it highlights. I'm going to revolve that shape around that axis. Now to do that, we'll create here, I beg your pardon, we might need to do a solid. So click on the solid tab over here, and under the create area, the solid, we should find revolve. There it is there. See that? So with the revolve, you can see while looking at that drawing, you've got a 2D profile that gets spun around a central axis and creates a 3D shape. So we're going to do something similar. So we're going to click revolve. A little dialog box pops up here. There it is. Now, you're asked to what profile do you want to revolve? That's the first thing. Now, this is automatically selected. See how it's highlighted? Now, if there was another profile available, you'd have to actually select it. But because there's only one profile, Fusion knows that that's the only one you can use, so it's selected it automatically, and it goes that blue color. Now the next thing you need to specify is click on this button where it says select axis. So Fusion wants to know, where do we spin it about? We're going to spin it about this axis, about that axis. Like, I'll show you in a minute. If we spin it about this axis, like that, you got this big flat shape, right? It's a pancake. We don't want that. And it's created a new body, and it's gone around 360 degrees. So I don't want that shape. So I'm going to change it again by deleting that axis. And this time I'm going to select, for axis, this line here. And there's my bullet straight away. You see how it spun that shape out to create a 360 degree shape like that? That was pretty easy, wasn't it? Okay. Yeah, I agree. So I'm a bit lost. If I get a bit lost, just go back, click on the front, and there you are at the front again. Now click OK if you want to accept that, which you do, so you're happy with that. Now the next thing is I'm going to create some wheels sections for it. Now, oops, if I get lost again, just up and down all over the place, click front, and there you go. Now again, I'm going to do a sketch to create my wheel patterns, but I want the sketch to be on the mid plane. That's the plane that divides the center of the object. You see how I've made it on a mid plane? That's the mid plane there. So let's create another sketch. So create a sketch, this time on the mid plane, right there. I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, so now we're actually looking at the mid plane, believe it or not. Now, because it doesn't look obvious, there's a little fancy thing you can do here called slice. See that down there inside the sketch palette? You click slice, it'll slice the object along that plane. So now you can actually see what you're drawing at. See that? So you just slice the object like you slice an apple, and now you're looking at the face that's in front of you. Then that makes it a bit easier for us because we're going to start to align up some wheels. Now look, I've made a decision, and I won't go into it, you guys can work this out yourself, but I'm going to create my wheels, axles, to be a distance from the center line here. I want it to be around about 30 millimeters, my wheel axle, from that center line that goes right through the gas canister hole. So I've got to come down about 30 millimeters. So, and I'm going to use this construction line again, and I'll show you why in a minute. I'll tell you a lot of that, don't I? So let's create a line. So we'll go to create here, line, and I'm going to select construction line. Now I'm just going to draw a random line because we're going to dimension this and get it accurate. I'm going to make it parallel to that surface, and you can see if it goes up or down. It should say 0 degrees in the middle there. That means the line is parallel with this one. And you can hit escape, or you can hit right click and hit OK, and your line's there. Now I want this line to be 30 millimeters from this central axis, say, or this area here. So I'm going to use my dimension tool. There it is there, sketch dimension. I click on one line that I want a dimension from, left mouse button click. Do the same, left mouse button click the bottom and drag across. See that? So now I've got 19.75 millimeters. Well, okay, that's not too bad, but you know, I guess it'd probably be okay. I can change that dimension if I want to later. Alright, so I'm going to click, I'll click left click mouse button on it, and I'll fix that up, and I'm going to make it at about, say, 20 millimeters. I'll make it a bit bigger, 23 millimeters. Hit enter. See my line drops down that distance. Now I can always change this if I want to later. Next thing, I'm going to create some points because this is where I want my axles to go. So I go to point and I select a spot, and I think, oh yeah, I like it about there. Beautiful. And I'm going to select another point around about here. So there's 2 points. Now the points are there because we now want to create a circle, and we want a circle on that point. Now I know that the inner radius of this circle has to be 6 millimeters. So I type in 6, hit enter, and I've got a circle. But you see how it's a construction line circle? I didn't really want that. So if I hit Control Z, it disappears. Get rid of my construction, do my circle again. I want this circle to be a real thick line that I can work with. And so I'm hitting 6, I hit enter, and there's my diameter 6. I'm going to create another circle now, which is a bit bigger. So I'm going to make this one a bit thicker. I'm going to make it, say, 13 millimeters. Hit enter. Beautiful. Now it's lower than what I want. I want this line to be a bit higher. So see this dimension here? I'm going to double click on that dimension. It was 23. I'm going to change it up a little bit. I want to make it now, say, 18 millimeters. See, my line gets closer. Now that's good for me because I want this circle to overlap the inside here. Alright, want it to overlap. Now I might even make it a bit smaller. I'll make it about 17. Beautiful. Alright, just so my inner axle holes start to clear that outer edge. I could make it less if I wanted. Alright, do the same deal on the next one. On the other axle, front axle, 6 millimeters. Hit enter. Beautiful. And do another line. Click on the circle again. Wait till I hover over that midpoint so it locks in, and then drag out, and this time I want that to be 13 millimeters. Hit enter. Beautiful. Alright, they're still in contact with each other. You'll see why I want that in a minute. Now, what I'm going to do now, and I'll just show you a little bit here in 3D what's going to happen. So we've drawn this center line. I'm going to extrude outwards to create my cylindrical shape that holds my wheels from either side. So to do that, I'm going to go hit the solid tab. See up here the solid tab? I've been using the sketch function here, but I can go solid now, and that's the extrude button. So I click on that, and then Fusion says, okay, you want to extrude? Here's all the information I need. First thing I need is I need a profile. What shape are you going to extrude? Now if I hover over this profile, left mouse button click, it highlights. See how the arrow pulls out? Well, I can grab that arrow and it'll drag out in one direction, but I don't want that. I want the thing to go on both sides. So I don't want it just to extrude on one side. I want to extrude symmetrically, which means the same distance on both sides. So now it's going to extrude on both sides. That's why I chose the center plane, because I want it evenly on both sides to extrude outwards. So how much do I want it? There's a distance down here. Look, I can drag it. I can have a look at it and eyeball it and go, yeah, I think maybe that'll do. But you know, the reality is I've got to put some pretty big wheels on here, so I might drag this out until it comes just beyond the top of that edge, and that way I know my wheels aren't going to lock in and interfere, because my wheels are 32 millimeters in diameter, the standard wheels, so they might bump. So I'm going to go that distance, and look, lo and behold, Fusion's told me it's around about 11.5. So I'll just make it 11.5 to make it even. Hit OK. See how it's disappeared like that? I can't see anything. I wonder why that is. Well, probably because I left out a single function. So you can see under here, yeah, it's just got a hole there. What's the problem? Down here's the record of what I've been doing. I've done the revolve, done the sketch, and now here's my extrude. If I right click on that and I go up to edit feature here, and I can go back and redo this. And what did I do? Look at dummy that I am. I didn't use making a body. I chose to cut. So instead of creating a new body, this thing is just cut out that shape. Well, I don't want that. So put join in there, and now you're going to see it'll work pretty well. So there's my axle all set up like that, yeah? Okay. So next thing is, let's do the same thing on the other side. So if I wanted to do that, and I need to find this other thing, see how I can't see where that, I can't see anymore where that sketch was, with that circle around here? Most likely because on sketches, if I click sketches, they're not showing. So if I want to highlight them, I just got to click that little eye and the sketches pop out there. See that? Now I can see them. Now I'm in a position to hit the extrude button, select that sketch, and do exactly the same thing that I've done before. So go from both sides, make it symmetric. The distance, if you recall, was 11.5 millimeters on either side. And I don't want to cut, I want to actually join things together. And I click OK, and we're done. So now the car's almost complete. There's only one thing left, and that is that we've got a bit of a weakness here. You see, there's not much joining on this front part to the top, to the bullet section. So let's place a nice little chamfer or something on that area. And if I highlight it, you'll notice, well, you might notice, there's the shape that I want to chamfer it. See it? So I'm going to create a, I'll go to modify, the modified toolbar area, and I'm going to create a chamfer for you. So chamfer, you can see on that box, it's like a sloping surface. And I click on chamfer, and Fusion says, fine, that's all good, but you got to tell me what surface you want to chamfer. Now comes the tricky bit. I've got to find the surface. By hovering over, there it is, that's that one. Now, there's all sorts of other surfaces going on here, but I want that one. So I click that. And now I can drag this out, and you'll see the chamfer will start to get bigger. Can you see it growing there? I might make it a little bit bigger for us. Right, there it is. So I've got a pretty chunky chamfer there. That's going to make that pretty strong, right? I'm sure you'll agree that's not going to come off now. Now I can type a distance, or I can just drag it by hand. Dragging is kind of fun because you can see it grow and shrink. And I'll click OK. Now this time over here on this side, I'm going to do something a bit different. So instead of using a chamfer, I'm going to show you a fillet. A fillet's kind of like a circular shape. Pretty handy, and it's lighter than a chamfer. So let's try here, and we'll go Modify, Fillet. Now again, Fusion wants to know from the dialog box it's a fillet function. So where is it? What's the shape? It's not that wheel. It's not that. There it is there. It's that intersection between the cylinder of the body of the bullet and the intersection between the cylinder of the wheel housing. So I'm going to drag that out a little bit, and you'll start to see. Now if you get a red line going on, that red line means it's got a problem. It means it can't do something. So go slow, take it easy, and then we'll click OK. And you'll find that there's the chamfer sitting there nice and beautiful like that. It's almost like a welded surface, yeah? Just gives it some extra strength. Well folks, that's it. The bullet car has been made. Now you can save it. Save it like that. It'll say where do you want to save it, what do you want to call it. I'm going to call it Bullet 2, and I can choose a location. Now try and choose somewhere on one of your storage folders that you've got here. You can start a new one and call it, I don't know, My Cool Projects, and click OK, and there's you've got a folder called My Cool Projects. Open up that folder and save it in there. It's under My Cool Projects, and it'll be there forever on the cloud. Alright, now next thing to do is if you want to 3D print this, you're going to have to save it as a .stl file. Now the .stl file is pretty simple. You just hover over the object's name, which selects the whole object, right click, and then you save it as an STL. What's that look like? Click on it and you'll see. Now see how the shape's now been divided up and made up into a massive triangles. Don't play around with these too much. If you make the triangles too small, the 3D printer can't cope. Generally speaking, leave these settings as they are. If you wanted to, you can widen them, make them a bit bigger or stuff, and you'll see the triangles will start to change in size like that. So that'll make it a bit easier for it. But you can play around depending on the detail that you want, but don't make the triangles too small. It will create you problems. So now you've got a shape that's been triangulated, see? And the 3D printer prints every one of those geometric shapes. So it can't print curved surfaces, it only prints straight, so you split up into a whole bunch of flat triangles that are so small that it looks like it's round. Okay, you click OK with that down here, and then it's going to save it. And where do you want to save it? Well, on your desktop is fine, and it's got the suffix STL in it, and that's something you can feed into a slicer for your 3D printer. Alright, so click Save, and we are done. Thank you very much for listening. We appreciate that.